Good morning and welcome. It's a Wednesday edition of the program, and I welcome you. I beg your pardon, Thursday edition of the program. Nah, forward ever, backward never. So it's a Thursday edition of the program, and I welcome you to the show today. It's VOP this morning. I am Moses Humphrey. On the radar today, over the next 2 hours, President Tinubu presents 47.9 trillion naira 2025 budget to National Assembly. And we'll x-ray that and the allocations in the budget. We hear defense takes a chunk of it, and also another chunk of it, about over 33% of it, will go into servicing debts. Oh well, let's get into all of that in the course of the program.
I am Fina Okechukwu. Welcome to the show. It is interesting how we're beginning to allocate the 3-point-something% of our 2025 budget to loan servicing, and still Nigeria is still borrowing regardless. Also on our radar, we'll be giving the touchlight on how NNPCL, is going back and forth to Dangote Refinery, saying that they invested $1 billion in Dangote's refinery, as a case of helping them when they don't really have money, they don't have cash. And Dangote have come up to say through their spokesperson, changing to say, no, how can you say that 1 billion is what you bring in, more like a loan you give to us when we're not having money? That's just like 5% of, what they use in building the 65,000 capacity refinery here in Lagos. We'll also touch on that during the course of the program.
Oh, that's 650,000.
650,000.
Thank you for that.
Refinery.
Oh, well, those are the two major topics of discussion for today. I am Chukwuma Okoro. Good morning and thanks for joining us. We also have other interesting stories. But before we proceed, kindly visit our website, www.vop.ng, for fresh and trending news stories. Also, click on the subscription button and subscribe to our YouTube channel on Voice of the People TV and on other social media platforms. We are at VOP TV Live. You can also be part of this conversation by calling in or sending WhatsApp messages on the number that appears on your screen. The number is 0904-473-2605. I'll take that again so that you capture it. 0904-473-2605. Now let's take a peep into the first trending story. The People's Democratic Party, PDP, in Edo State has rejected the suspension of 18 local government chairmen by the State House of Assembly, calling it unconstitutional. The party's chairman, Anthony Agzebemi, stated that the move violated a court ruling affirming local government autonomy and the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Meanwhile, the affected chairman, under the aegis of the Association of Local Governments of Nigeria, ALGON, also condemned the action, asserting it contradicts court orders safeguarding their tenure until 2025. Now, ALGON chairman Newman Ugaibe stressed that the Assembly lacks the authority to suspend democratically elected officials, describing the move as unlawful and ineffective. We talked a bit about Edo State yesterday, and here again, Edo State. And quite clearly, this is if you ask me, this is a constitutional matter, and it will take maybe, I'm very sure that the PDP will go to court to contest this matter. Because from my understanding as a layman, but I've followed politics for a very long time, I understand that the State House of Assembly does not have the power to suspend local government chairman. It's like saying that the National Assembly can suspend the governor. It doesn't happen. The local government councils have constituted, duly elected councillors who now serve as legislators. So it is within their purview to, sanction, if they feel strongly about any form of infraction, because the House of Assembly says that, look, monies were mismanaged and all of that. If the councillors feel strongly about that, the appropriate thing to do is to constitute a panel within themselves, do an investigation, come up with a report. If an infraction is established, then they can now suspend or even impeach the chairman. That is the only route that a local government chairman can be removed from office. Even the governor does not have the right to suspend or to even remove a local government chairman. But like I said, it's a constitutional matter, and I'm sure that lawyers are going to wade into all of this in due time.
I see this to be more like a vendetta, if you ask me, because if you check the platform under which the local government chairman that was suspended or elected is under the opposition party. And their tenure to expire next year, 2025. So why are you swiftly moving to say, that the mismanaged public funds and all that, and they have to suspend them? Recall that the local government autonomy have come to stay. So some people are saying that this is more like, when we talked about the local government autonomy, some other persons were of the opinion that it's more like the governor putting people whom he or she can easily manipulate to still let him have access to the funds, by thereby taking a
when you say that local government autonomy has come to stay, it's a bit. Look at this is what we are. This is what we are seeing now.
Supreme Court have come up to say
if it is autonomous, the House of Assembly will not have the powers.
So some are saying that the reason we're having this issue is the fact that maybe the local government chairman, the 18 local government chairman, refused to allow the state governor have access to their fund. And it's just one of.
I think what we are dealing with now at the moment is financial autonomy.
That is the thing. That's what the autonomy is all about.
As it stands now, the governor, it's unfortunate this is playing out, and I know that in the coming days we might see a similar thing to what has been happening in Rivers State. Quite unfortunate. Now, a few questions on my mind. I wonder how the State House of Assembly were able to agree to the suspension, to the 2-month suspension actually. They've been suspended for 2 months. I wonder how they were able to agree, seeing that even the State House of Assembly is predominantly PDP. So they have more PDP than APC and LP. I think LP has just 1 seat there. But they were able to agree to this. And, it's also funny and out of place for the governor to request to see the statement of accounts of local government chairman. Why ask for their statement of accounts? Like you rightly said, it's like the National Assembly asking the governors to come and give account of how much they spend. It's not in their place. It's not in their place. Well, let's see how this one turns out.
Moses, sorry, before we move on, what has happened in the House of Assembly, having majority of the PDP, it just tells you how Edo politics will travel in the next 4 years.
That's the thing.
Those PDP members will eventually move over to the APC.
We're seeing that. We're seeing that playing out.
That's my prediction.
And also, you wouldn't rule out the fact that someone is on PDP and still works for APC. So you never can tell where they are interested.
Ultimately, in all of this, let's see how the PDP handles its own in this. If the PDP goes the way it went in Rivers State, leaving things to fester for so long, then they might be losing Edo completely. But if they stamp their foot and ensure that justice is served, justice for the council chairman now, well, let's see. Let's just see how everything play out. I think I would like to, watch keenly to see how this one plays out. Anyway, away from that story, this next one is a terrible one, an unfortunate story. There was a stampede yesterday at a children's carnival in Osun State. Yes, in Oyo State, I beg your pardon, in Ibadan, Oyo State, where that one was held in Bashorun, I think Bashorun community, and it left children dead. Now, as to the number, I'm not certain because some reports say 1, some reports say 7, with many injured. But the issue is that children have been injured or maybe dead as a result of that stampede. And that was from a party organized by, I think they call her former Oni's wife. Well, it's unfortunate. Now, this speaks to organization, all right? If you're inviting, if you make publicity and invite a lot of people to an event, you should be able to provide safety, security. You should be able to have an organizational structure that will ensure that everyone will be catered for. But, issue of stampede should not have come up if there was proper organization where they know, who goes where to collect what. We know that there's poverty in the land and people would want to rush to collect things. And this has led to quite an unfortunate one. Well, the governor has called for an investigation into how this one played out, and all the parties involved have been arrested. The radio station that did this in conjunction with the former Oni's wife have all been taken in to explain their role in all of it. Quite an unfortunate one. Our hearts go out to the families that lost children in that incident.
It's painful, indeed, when you said, you talked about the poverty level in Nigeria. Another version of the story said that some parents even arrived at the venue Tuesday, waiting for the Wednesday where the carnival proposed to take place.
500 children.
Ooh,
Imagine. That's a lot.
It's also another call to the government to please do what they need to do. Some people will come up and say that they've decided to weaponize poverty to make sure that Nigerians are poor so that they can also do their bidding. But I don't think that will take us anywhere. It's not going to take us anywhere. The government should do the needful. Taxpayers are paying their tax, and we expect it to be used the way it should, by making sure that everything is the way it should be. Imagine this is getting to the Yotard period, and we're having another MBS coming up to tell us that the inflation rate, food inflation now is kind of higher than what it was before now, and the headline inflation also is high. Nigerians cannot afford food, thereby making it anywhere they see an event. Some people are crashing people's events, even when it's really on invitation and all that, and people are making careless statements to this regard. I would just ask the government to do the needful.
Oh, well, I think there's another, not quite different, but a story, to this incident. We spoke to somebody that knows the organizers, and the information I got was that, look, when the organizers, saw the massive attendance ahead of the event, they tried to cancel it. They tried to call it off, but it was like, no, at this moment, we cannot go back because purchases had been made and arrangements made and all of that. But like Fina said, it speaks to the poverty in the land. The poverty is palpable. You can feel it. You can feel it. You just take away this event. You need to attend weddings in some parts of the country. You see how people well-dressed. Sometimes we turn these things to skits, but that's the reality. There's hunger in the land. People dress to go from one occasion to the other. The occasion...
Even when they don't know anybody.
Even when they don't know anybody, uninvited, get Christ, nobody invites them. Sometimes you take lunch at one venue, then in the evening, when another one is winding up, you just go and
do it.
No,
they even move on with bags to collect the food.
Most is people that are very well dressed. The economy is bad. Things are very hard. You need to walk the streets. And the moment people see that you are well dressed, before you move like 3 or 4 pools, you see about 2 or 3 people accosting you, begging you for money.
In fact, it's on the streets, it's in social media. You take a picture, nobody cares if it's a filtered picture. People just get into your inbox and start asking you for assistance. It's really bad. It's really bad. Well, talking about walking the streets, the president came into Lagos yesterday, and I think this should stop. The president came into Lagos yesterday, and there was crazy traffic in Lagos, and that's because some roads were cordoned off. So the president will pass before Lagosians, would have the right of way. Now, it's not just about the roads now. Excuse me. It also happens at the airport. When the president lands, no other aircraft is allowed to land for about an hour until he leaves the airport. And this happens only in Nigeria, because I had to make some inquiries. Why? This is an individual voted into power by the people. If democracy speaks to the people having the power, then why will the people be treated in this manner? You land at an airport, the airways are closed until you're done, and then you leave before flights are allowed to land. Flights will hover. They will hover, or they go to the nearest airport and then land again after you have left the airport. That's bad. That should stop. And then there was traffic all the way from the airport road all the way through Third Mainland Bridge into Ikoyi. There was crazy traffic yesterday. Just
you're talking about the traffic
to come to Lagos to celebrate Yuletide.
What about how the police, not just police now, security operatives,
how they react.
Officers were everywhere.
Oh yes,
I know you noticed that too.
In fact, and you see the impunity this gives them can lead to further harm being done. Yeah. I was driving back from the island last night at about late into the night. I think it was about 11 p.m. and vans with siren blaring, driving recklessly on the Third Mainland Bridge,
You know, Moses,
trying to shove people off the road. Was the president in that entourage? No, he wasn't even there.
Exactly. It's quite crazy. But this is a carryover.
You shouldn't get him.
Yes. It's quite crazy. I feel you. This is a carryover from the military era. You know, I recall when the whole of Ikorodu Road had to be blocked because Abacha had to leave. What's that place again? No. The State House Marina.
Marina, okay.
When he had to leave to State House Marina to the airport, you know, he would still be in his bedroom prepping, you know, and the roads were blocked. The whole of Ikorodu Road up until Kata Bridge, the whole of Marina up until the airport, the local airport and all of that. Now, the simple question to ask is this. And because of security details, like you said, you cannot tell that, look, the president is coming to Lagos. You can't give out that information because of the security implication. So if, for instance, a flight was coming into Lagos airport, you know, you don't tell them that the president is going to fly, the president is going to be on air in the next 1 or 2 hours. So they will naturally take off. So by the time they are about making a final descent, the tower now tells them, look, you can't come down because the president is about to come in or take off. Now they keep hovering. We have had a situation where an aircraft had to move to the nearest airport to land.
You get the point.
And I begin to ask, sorry, Fina, I begin to ask, these things could be better handled. The president's advance team can move quietly. Go and wait for him at Bodilon, State House Marina, or wherever. The president, when he lands at the airport, a chopper can ferry him into the island so that you save people the horrible experience of having to stay in traffic for like 2-3 hours.
You know, I experienced it. You're becoming emotional. But there was one thing I experienced somewhere in Abuja.
Yes, because he experienced it.
Then in Abuja, I won't forget that day where we have only one runway. Yeah, I'm sorry to say, Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, just one. And it happened that we call it a VIP movement. You know, the president is to take off and all that. Flights were delayed. And when these flights were being delayed, we don't even have a clear view of when it's going to happen, where is this president going to move and all that.
Endlessly.
People need to move. Flights were delayed for hours, you know, and this kind of disrupted activities of people for the day. No one apologized for that, you know. But all the same, that is where we find ourselves.
Unfortunately. Oh, well, now let's get into the papers. Let's take a little breather. When we come back, we'll look at headlines from the dailies. Well, thanks for joining us again. Now let's get into the papers proper. It's newspaper headlines here. From the Punch newspaper, Oni's ex-wife, that story that we just talked about actually, is on the cover page of the Punch newspaper. And it's tagged, Ibadan Funfair Tragedy. Oni's ex-wife, others face probe as 32 children feared killed. UCH, 2 others confirm 16 deaths. So it's more than I thought even. Makinde vows justice. Sympathizes with parents. Quite an unfortunate one. It's a terrible way to start the day, a terrible way to start the season as well. Well, some of the headlines here. On top of the masthead, AGF to meet Senate panel on tax reform bills today. PSC promotes over 8,000 police officers. Cash scarcity, OPS falls CBN's limit on POS withdrawals. Saraki, Plateau governor, not central bigwigs, demand PDP chairman's slot. And then gridlock grounds Lagos-Ibadan Expressway as driver dies in crash. 18 Edo LG chairman, false suspension. Okwewolo orders probe. FG plans 13 trillion naira loan as Tinubu presents 49.7 trillion naira 2025 budget. All right. Well, what we have on the screen is from yesterday. Let's put up today's paper. We're taking the Punch newspaper today's Punch newspaper. All right then.
And the Guardian newspaper this morning, the banner headline there is a 2025 appropriation bill. Tinubu eyes 15% inflation rate from 49.7 trillion naira budget to spend 2% on agri. I'll take that again for emphasis sake. 2025 appropriation bill. Tinubu eyes 15% inflation rate from 49.7 trillion naira budget to spend 2% on agri. And that story is on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper. And I have the major pictorial of the presentation of the budget to the House of Assembly. And then beneath that pictorial, Dangote denies NNPCL's $1 billion support claim. Crude obligations default. Dangote denies NNPCL's $1 billion support claim. Crude obligations default is one of our major topic of conversation this morning. NEC releases new tariff, asks Disco to downgrade customers. FG approves zero import duty, VAT on CNG LPG equipment. Government begins full tax waivers on drug, January. The story is on page 5 of the Guardian newspaper. Tax reforms. Clark urges national restructuring, equitable system. Stakeholders pick holes in Tinubu's reform, knock CBN for FX cash crisis. State governors playing politics with minimum wage, civil servants alleged. And the last but not the least of the headline that made it to the cover page of the Guardian newspaper this morning reads, governance failure fueling violent extremism as FG committed to tackling insecurity.
Up next is the Daily Trust with the banner headline, Scores of children feared dead in Ibadan Carnival Stampede. Scores of children feared dead in Ibadan Carnival Stampede. The Punch newspaper said killed. I think it's more like dead. Feared dead. Anyway, parents demand release of corpses. Organizers arrested. Now the window headlines, 2025 budget, security gets lion's share, gobs 14.5 billion naira in 5 years. Onions hit 250,000 naira per bag. Farmers, traders blame flooding, inflation. CBN restricts POS agents to 1.2 million naira daily transaction, 100,000 naira for customers. There are other stories there. PDP crisis, North Central leaders meet in Abuja, insist on chairmanship. Total Energies, MRS, Sahara, others win 25 new oil blocks. $1 billion loan. Your statement misleading. Dangote replies, NNPCL. There are other stories there. Okay, victims cry out as FCTA demolishes 20,432 structures. Natives stressing to go spiritual. Lawyers seek adequate compensation notices. No going back on exercise. Wike, that's the FCT minister. And that's all from the Daily Trust newspaper.
All right, so we'll just take one more and then we wrap this up. And one more will be coming from Nigerian Tribune. And it reads, bold headline here. It's not the banner headline, but it's quite a bold one. Over 30 feared dead, scores injured at Ibadan Children Fun Fair tragedy. Organizers already in custody won't go unpunished if found culpable. Makinde. And then we have inflation to slide to 15% next year, says Tinubu, as he presents 49.7 trillion naira 2025 budget. Defense, infrastructure, health, education, top priorities. Nigeria targets 3.89% deficit, 34.82 trillion naira revenue. NAS extends life of 2024 budget to June 2025. That's good. Experts express divergent views on budget estimates. Budget, anti-people, PDP. Drama, as Assets Recovery Committee storms tribunal to recover vehicles conveying PDP counsel. Illegal hawking of Naira notes. We won't spare airing banks, CBN governors, says $42.01 billion external reserves can finance importation for 9 months. And then to Edo State we go. Edo Council Chairman Dare Okpewolo vow to continue till expiration of tenure. There you go. So the drama is just getting started. Well, that's how far we can go with newspaper headlines. Join us again at 9 o'clock, where we'll go deeper into the stories, bringing you analysis of these stories. That's a newspaper review proper. Now, stay with us as we get into our conversation for today, and it's about the budget. President Tinubu presents 47.96 trillion naira 2025 budget to National Assembly. Let's take a look at it. Let's break it down for you. Join us again.
The gift of love,
the gift of joy,
the gift of laughter,
the gift of happiness,
the gift of peace. May all these and more be yours this Yuletide season.
Merry Christmas!
Season's greetings from the management and staff of Voice of the People Television.
Well, thanks for joining us again. President Bola Tinubu on Wednesday presented a national budget of 47.96 trillion naira for 2025 to the joint session of the National Assembly, emphasizing that it was crafted based on economic realities to drive prosperity. He expressed confidence that the budget would build on key government policies, leveraging the resilience of Nigerians to foster economic growth. Key word there, resilience. The president's budget plans include spending 15.81 trillion naira on debt servicing, accounting for about 33.1% of the total expenditure. Now, this comes despite concerns about the impact of high debt servicing on the nation's development. The government also announced that the 2024 budget will be extended until June 30, 2025 to ensure the full implementation of its capital projects. Well, Senate President Godswill Akpabio confirmed the extension of the 2024 budget during the joint session, noting that the decision was made to allow for the complete execution of capital components, while government's focus on debt servicing and infrastructure development remained central to its fiscal strategy for 2025. Now, to look at this budget presentation and what Nigerians should expect, we have joining us in the studio. We have Dele Fanimo, seasoned journalist, reporter, a seasoned reporter, that's what he likes to be called, but he's a journalist still, and a social and political critic. Good to have you join the conversation this morning.
Good morning this morning, and good morning to the viewer at home.
We also have Dr. Gali Oluwashola, managing partner, KJB Professional Services, looking all fresh, ready for Christmas. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
And joining us virtually, we have Isiaka Gbadamosi, who's a public affairs commentator and an SDG advocate. Well, I do hope he's joined the conversation already. All right, let's establish contact with you. Good morning to you, Isiaka.
Thank you very much, Moses. Good morning and compliment of the season.
Good to have you. Now, we've also been taking responses from our correspondent in Abuja, Chuka, will be joining us from our Abuja studio, and we'll also now be touching on some other studios in Oka and other parts, Port Harcourt as well, and other parts of Nigeria in the course of the program. So that's to let you know VOP is expanding. All right, so let's get into the conversation. I'll start with a man who knows a lot more about budgeting and tax, you know, how all these things work. So with 33% of our budget going into servicing debts, not even paying off the debts, not paying a chunk of it, but servicing debt. Do we expect any sort of macroeconomic recovery, like the budget has been termed, to focus on in 2025?
Okay, that's a brilliant question. When you look at, to retract, when you look at in 2024 budget, the annual expenditure was around 27 trillion plus, right? And it was later increased to 35.5 trillion. And as at the time that it was 27 trillion, the dollar equivalent is around $36 billion, right? And so when you look at this current budget, it's around 47.9 trillion, and the dollar equivalent going by the 1.5 thousand naira to 1,500 naira to a dollar, it's around $31 billion, right? So there is no material increase between this year budget and last year budget.
Okay.
Because our currency has actually been devalued. So indirectly, there is no material increase. It's more or less that our budget is even lower than what we budgeted for last year in terms of figure and in terms of the valuation of our currency, right? And when you look at where I think it's overhyped when we talk about bringing down, talking about inflation coming from 34% to 15%, I think that is not economical. Talking about the indices and the parameters. Look, as we speak today, our food inflation is around 40%, right? Despite the fact of 3.3 trillion loan, that is the agricultural loan given. So our food inflation is around 40%. Even our inflation is over 34%. So talking about it's going to nosedive from 34% to 15%, I think this has the parameters there are not even harnessed very well. And when you look at the budget itself, it's more painful when you look about a developing country and look at the money, the figure we have to fund to service our debt, and the fund we have what we proposed for a recurrent expenditure against what we proposed for a capital project. No nation, no developed country that is yearning to be developed, we go through that route, because what you should vote for your capital project should be more, because it's your capital project that will help your development, and it will also help in future to earn more revenue. But when you now vote budget or propose a small budget for your capital project and you have more recurrent expenditure, it's talking about an expenditure that has no benefit for the economy. So it's still tagging us as a consuming economy. We just like to consume. We are not interested in investment and in having a development that is going to outlive us, and in the long run is going to reproduce what we have as our principal budget, right? And I think also what makes Nigeria frown more is that why will you play, even what they peg in terms of revenue coming in, they propose that we are going to be having over 2 million barrels per day, which is not feasible unless you want to change the parameter. Because as we speak now, what we are doing is a a little below, above 1 million. And we actually also struggle around that area because most of it, and also most of this figure, most of this our oil revenue, it has been voted to servicing the debt, right? So we don't even have the ability to earn more from there. And do not forget, Trump has actually also planned that once he resumes office, it will ensure that there is much more crude oil available. So indirectly, even at the OPEC place, they are already pegging it around 60-something dollar per barrel. So we are so much ambitious in terms of that. What we should be focusing on is how do we generate revenue from other sources, and also how do we increase. No, as we speak now, our agricultural place now, we are not focusing on that. What we are doing, I don't know who is taking that loan. We cannot give so much as loan, and we are still having we are having our food inflation coming up. I think investigation the government should investigate that area, because if we can, as we speak now, we are still operating a low level. We have not gone into full mechanized agriculture, which could help us. We have now we are going into a diplomatic agreement with France, with Germany, in terms of our gold, right? How do we have to enhance it? Are we trying to tell them that those companies should be brought into Nigeria so that they will be in Nigeria to develop the economy of Nigeria? Or we will give them the room to just export our gold without having an economic impact on Nigeria?
All right then.
Okay.
All right then. Now let's quickly get Isiaka's view on the budget as well. The budget presented yesterday. What were your thoughts when you heard the president? Because the president seemed very, very pleased with the implementation so far. He feels like the budget has worked so well so far, and then there will be an extension of the 2024 budget up until June 30, 2025. What are your thoughts, really?
Okay, once again, good morning, Moses. Good morning, Chukuma. Good morning, Fina. And the panelists in the studio, compliment of the season. We pray for a very good Christmas and prosperous New Year. The president yesterday, interesting, presenting the 2025 budget. But from the statement you mentioned earlier about extending the 2024 budget beyond, and from the information we got from the Senate president that they're going to extend the 2024 budget beyond 2024 into 2025, all the way to June, it tells us that the implementation of the 2024 budget has really not been very effective, as it were. For me, presentation of the budget by the president is part of the usual ritual. Just like it's been said, the devil is in the details. We need to take a look at the details. We need to have a clear understanding of what are the details of, just like my co-panelist mentioned earlier, what we have right now is not really a budget in terms of volume that is more than what we had before because of the devaluation of the naira and then some of the indices in the economy. And for me, I quite agree with the fact that some of our projection, because I mentioned this when the medium-term expenditure framework was presented to the House, that the parameters we are using, for me, are quite ambitious. If you are using parameter for medium-term expenditures framework of more than 2 million barrels per production per day, maybe about $70-something, $70-something to $80 exchange, and all of that. For me, I think those are very ambitious and not really realizable, and that would affect the budget implementation and even the revenue drive and generation to a great extent. So I think our budget should be much more of a realistic stuff.
All right.
Then we should also look at the area of generating internal revenue, and I think that is something that is being worked on with this tax reform bill, which I hope will get the blessing of all of those that are agitating against it, and then we can fine-tune it and get it passed.
All right, thank you, Mr. Isiaka. But let me stay with you. The Senate president did mention that the 2024 budget cycle will run up until 30th of June next year, and he premised it on the fact that we need to get finished with some of the capital projects that are ongoing. In my understanding, that presupposes that the two budgets, 2024, 2025, run side by side. Now, that also suggests that there will be more money pumped into the economy, especially when it has to do with construction. Now, we are dealing with high levels of inflation. How do you, and the central bank is also trying to mop up cash from society, from the economy to ensure that, look, there's no so much money in circulation. How is that, I mean, the two budgets running side by side, how is that going to affect the efforts of the central bank governor to fight inflation that is already at 3.4%?
Let me talk about the issue of the budget running side by side. You see, these are not new things around. Running a budget beyond the stipulated or maybe the period of time within which it was passed is not anything new to our system. We have seen that over time, over the years, whereby maybe because of the fact that the funds that were expected to be raised to implement the budget were not raised or were not enough, so the budget has to be extended for a particular period of time, and that does not also stop the fact that the substantive budget, which is for the 2025 financial year, would not be implemented. And implementing a budget is a very serious kettle of fish. Is a whole lot of work on its own. Now, talking about the issue of inflation and bringing inflation under control, for somebody like me, I don't think the implementation of capital projects and even the budget is what is going to exacerbate inflation or create a high liquidity in the economy. No, I do not think that really is what is going to cause that, because most of what we are talking about here affects companies, those that are implementing some of these projects that we are talking about, infrastructural projects and all of that.
All right, then. Thank you. Thank you. Are you still there?
All right, now let's bring you back to the studio. Mr. Fanimo, during this project presentation, talking about Tajuddin Abbasina, the House of Representatives Speaker, made a statement. He said that Nigeria's budget is kind of low, below what other African nations have for the year 2025. He went for that talk about how that of South Africa, stood at $160 billion, Egypt $110 billion, Algeria $60 billion, and a whole lot more. And he went for that talk about how our tax ratio in Nigeria is below what continent of Africa is supposed to take, which is 15%. Are we seeing 2025 being a year where Nigerians now will be made to provide the necessary liquidity needed for this budget to come the way it should be?
You recall that when before the president came to explain the nitty-gritty of the budget, the highlight then was that 13 billion will be sourced externally to fund the budget. You see, for me, the comparison, when you talk about a peer review, is not the real thing. The environment, the exigencies of the time and all that differ from one country to the other. And South Africa is a productive country. Egypt is comfortable with production. Which other country are we looking at?
Algeria.
Algeria. These are countries, for instance, that are about 3 automobile firms that are assembling plants in South Africa. And so some of these places, they have resources to rely on to get the needed foreign exchange that could show off whatever is made locally in their countries. Here, we don't have much of that. You see, I was thinking that the federal government will be talking about non-oil exports. They gave us a window that, at a point last year, that our non-oil exports was greater than the dependency on oil. But I have not seen that play out in this new budget. 3, you would also observe that much of these countries that we're talking about, they're not servicing debt as much as we do. Imagine a country servicing. You see, I think we need to bring some of these things down to the layman's language so that people can understand that we are using 33 point something percent to service debt does not translate to paying the debt. You are only talking about interest. You are not talking about the principal. And so, consistently, you have to do this year in, year out. And what that means is that you are being denied the liquidity you require to embark on major infrastructural development in the country.
So
and if you are not...
Is it that Tajuddin Abbas is not aware of all this before drawing the comparison? He was of the opinion that we should do more in terms of
we should raise our budget profile.
Exactly, and also look at the increment when it gets.
How do you build?
Because you just suppose our own population.
How do you build castle in the air? You don't have a foundation, and you are talking about 15-story, 20-story building. You are only deceiving yourself, because if all the indices and parameters are not cannot sustain what you are pushing out, you are likely to have heavy budget deficit. So in this case, I feel that what we should be focusing on is, like you read, we need to reorganize our tax system.
Okay.
To the extent that those who are supposed to pay. Then we should increase our non-oil exports to be able to show up, because nobody is even talking about foreign reserve. Yes, they tell us that foreign reserve is about 39 or so $billion. And some of these things, I think, here, what we should be doing is most of these things should be broken down to the layman's understanding, so that Nigerians will understand. You see, this particular area we have not touched. Okay. And that is the area that gives us strength for exports, for imports. If your foreign reserve is not buoyant enough, there's a limit. $39 billion may not take us more than 7 months of exports, of imports. And we should be boosting our foreign reserve for us to be able to, because that also helps us in negotiating for loan and all these facilities that we enjoy. So for now, that budget does not look good to me. The implementation of the budget may have issues, because the benchmark for crude oil, given what is happening in the international market, is not realistic.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Dele. Let me come to Dr. Gani Olushowa. I'd like you to react to, I have two questions. I'd like you to react first to the fact that the two budgets will run concurrently up until June 2025, and the implication, the same question I asked Mr. Isiaka, does it have any implication to how the CBN is going to fight inflation with the Minister of Finance and all of that? If you factor in exchange rate, balance of payment, and all of that, considering that, like I said, there will be so much money, I suppose, that will be pumped into the economy. We already have a budget that is running. We borrowed monies, I think, like 6 weeks ago, $2.2 billion. And now we are going to be operating two budgets. How is it going to affect inflation? And again, the fact that our benchmark is already threatened, that is the source. We are looking at $75 per barrel. Now it's hovering between 65 and thereabout. Does that suggest that Nigeria is going to witness more borrowing in 2025 if we are not able to average at that $75?
Okay. Brilliant question. Let me start from your second one. Even the Minister of Finance, the coordinator, Wale Edu, says that they will borrow more. he has specifically said that they are going to do more borrowing so much amount from dollar from UK and one from another under $500 billion, right? So it shows that our borrowing, because we have budget deficit. And budget deficit, remember last year, we have budget deficit of almost $12 billion plus of our budget deficit, and which we borrow more, right? Because our budget was, our total budget was around 27 trillion, which is $36 billion, right? And it was later increased to 35 trillion, right? So in other words, those gap, that different gap of around 7 trillion, right? It was funded, and do not forget we still have deficit, and we borrowed more, right? And which is not good for economy. That is one of the things that is putting more pressure on our currency, and that is one of the drivers of inflation, right? Because now our inflation is around 34%. So there's the parameter that would drive it to 15%. I'm still looking at it, right? Because even as at yesterday, we were told, it was on the pages of the newspaper, that the amount that was used to pay ransom in this year was 2.2 trillion. This figure, government did not earn anything. No taxes, no revenue. Imagine the government get taxes on 2.2 trillion of 33%. The government will be earning around 1.5 trillion as revenue from that 2.2 trillion. So these are funds that are in the economy. The CBN does not have, because these are funds that is not in the bank. Because once it's in the bank, you want to track the owner. These are funds that is either stuck in a building, buried in the ground, stuck far in the bush, and these are funds that also compete in the market that both you and I goes to the market to do. And so you are now increasing interest rate to around 27 point something percent, which will affect people that are in the bucket in the CBN, that you can control the fund they have. So SMEs are facing the heat, right? And the inflation indices is not coming down. It's increasing day in, day out. Despite the $3.3 billion, not in Naira, $3.3 billion agricultural loan given to Nigeria, food inflation is still around 40%. You can mirror, you can match it together, right? There's no parameter you can put in place that could show that, oh, this is actually translating into work. I think they should be able to show the president and see what is really happening. And when you now look at extending our budget lifespan to June, for me, it's not good for us, because we have a fiscal year that the government runs. Government's budget line, government year plan is January to December. At the end of December, budget is closed, right? So, and you know in Nigeria we run ZBB budget, zero-based budget, right? So either you finish spending, those are the things we also argue. Maybe we voted $100 billion, $100 trillion naira to your ministry. And at the end of the year, you spend only 50 trillion naira. Okay. The remaining 50 trillion
carried over.
It's not carried over.
It survives.
It's gone.
But ordinarily,
it should be carried over. That is one of the things we have found.
Return it to the treasury.
They don't return it.
They don't.
You zeroized it. Either you dash people, you do anything to it. That is one of the things we are clamoring for.
Would that be the reason that we are yet to get the responsibility, fiscal responsibility?
That is one of the things we are vying for in the country, that we don't want zero-based budget.
We need to take that again for emphasis now, so our viewers can understand better. So if something is budgeted for, and during the implementation of it, all the monies budgeted were not used, all wasn't used, some left, it's not carried over into the next year's budget of that MDA.
Very well.
Is that what you're saying?
Very well.
You're saying in the next cycle, the next year, that money, whatever is left, fizzles into thin air.
So you can just create anything that will go for it. You can, anything to be bought, anything to be done. I don't know how it works, but it does not get. And the real budget itself, you must bring in what you've not spent into the new budget. That's why you can see in our budget, there is no fund from last year bring forward. We are starting from ground zero.
Would that be the reason?
No, let me come in at this point. Okay. You see, there is an existing law that they call environment. You via those monies. Okay.
What is environment? What is environment?
Is that if you are, for instance, an agency. I
want the viewer at home to understand.
Yes, an agency, you have a budget of 30 billion for an agency. And the agency spends 27 billion. You have 3 billion left.
Exactly.
The law stipulates that you return that money to the treasury.
Ordinarily.
Okay. But what doctor is talking about is corruption. Not that there is no existing law that mandates you to return it to the treasury.
But we see this.
And what plays out, like he said, is that they use some other means. Frivolous means.
Rather than returning to
it's not as if the law is not there. For instance, if you look at the NDAs, when between October, November is when you have this rash proliferation of seminars, workshops, offshore and onshore. They will take a seminar for local government functionaries or wife of local government functionaries to Dubai. That's the money they use just to circumvent the process of returning it back to the treasury. So it is not as if it is a right for them to do that, but they only use other means to make sure that that money is not turned back to the... If you remember the case of Professor Grange,
the health minister.
The health minister then, they took 300 million out of this kind of money to her. And she said, what is it for? They said, no, this is what your predecessors enjoy. Just take it. It's part of the money we ought to return to the treasury, and we don't need to return it. That's what your predecessors enjoy. And that was how she was roped in. And it became a scandal. So that's the kind of money.
Now that brings me to the question I asked earlier now, Dr. Oluwasegun. Could that now be the reason whereby the Fiscal Responsibility Act of Nigeria is not being adhered to?
Okay, let me just quickly touch base. When they talk about environment in the public space, what they use environment for is actually we have two MDAs, right? So you now move a budget budgeted for me, and I'm not using, I can move it to you. Okay. So they can use budget environment. In real sense, they don't return it to treasury. In real sense, they don't return it to treasury. So because part of corruption, because in real sense, they should return it to treasury, right? And because also the way our law works, what we call it ZBB, zero-based budget. Anything at the end of the year, it must be zero-rated. So that's why when you see in our budget, there is no balance brought forward. It is starting from the scratch.
Okay, Doctor, my point now is, could this be the reason why the Senate President is being clear on this? Look, this money that's already running for capital projects, nothing should happen to it. Make sure that you apply them, to capital projects. Could it be the reason?
So in real sense, in proper planning in an organization, right, every budget has its lifespan. The main thing is that if there's a carryover, then you use it to prepare the next budget. It now becomes an opening balance, right? For any financial, there should always be an opening balance and a closing balance, right? Yes. So that should come and it become an added to anybody. Because running it to June, it could also give room for a lot of loopholes, right? A lot of things will go right. So we can't be running two budgets concurrently in the same fiscal year, right? We should be able to stay clear on it. This is where we are. This is the reason why we've not. And the question also, why haven't we completed that project as at this time? There should also be sanctions. there should also be consequences. So this also help people to be on their toe. Is it the fund is not made available, or is the fund was diverted to something else? Because this is a fiscal year. At the end of the year, you make to. And so the question also comes is that at the end of the year, when we are making proposition of our budget, do we also present to the public that this is how far we have spent the last year budget? All we just learned was that, yes, our budget was 27 trillion. We increased it to 35.5 trillion. The question is that how do we spend it? Because at the end of the day, there should be what we call accountability. Not that come in and say that this is how much we are going to spend it. This is the parameter. These are the expense. The way we spend it does not concern you. Or we just come to draw another one to you. So this makes everyone to be on their feet, because they know that at the end of the year they are going to prepare. Because even a typical organization prepare what we call audited financial statement, which shows that this is how much we have gotten, this is how much we spend, this is the deficit, right? And this is the surplus that we are taking, right? So this helps it also be able to navigate the terrain. But in the long run, if we don't have this, we still have corruption spurring up.
Well, we have it in Nigeria, just that some people have decided not to adhere to it. You know, we have the act that says that this
maybe what will save us.
You have to get it.
And so they had also, we talk about loopholes. This is my area of business. When we talk about, we call something tax evasion and tax avoidance. Tax avoidance is just saying that taking the loopholes in the tax law to be able to limit your tax exposure without contravening any law, without anybody holding you responsible. But tax evasion is just saying that it's an illegal aspect. But when you have a law that says that your budget must be zerated at the end of the year, nobody will hold you accountable. And don't forget also, in the public space, what we call value of money audit, right? Value of money audit, we call it VMA, right? So the question is that we voted 1 trillion to you to use it to build a bridge.
Okay.
At the end of the year, did you build the bridge? Yes. Show me the bridge. Yes. Is the bridge standard? I don't want to know. Do you use quality product? I don't want to know. Was it, if tomorrow I leave office and the bridge collapse, that's your headache. It's not my concern. My concern is that, do you use the 100 million trillion to build the bridge? Yes. That is value of money audit. Should we still go through that route? We should be able to look at, yes, we voted this. In what you are giving us in return, is this commensurate with what we have voted the money to? So these are the things, the underlining item. Because if I fail to do what is right, you can't hold me responsible, because I'm still within the confine of the law.
All right, then, thank you very much.
No, I think on the final note on this, for me, I think we should wait for the Minister of Finance to come and do the breakdown of this budget.
Yes,
they should also tell us the performance of the budget. What is the percentage ratio
we'll get to that. We'll get
performance
to that.
and all that?
We know we'll also look at statements made by the President of the Senate right before the President came to present the budget. He made a few statements I would like us to actually before the end of this conversation. Well, let's go to Abuja now. We have Chuka Chukudile. Good morning to you, Chuka. All right, Chuka. Now,
good morning, Chukuma. Good morning, everybody.
The budget. Yes, the President's son accompanied him into the chambers yesterday, and some Nigerians have raised eyebrows. Why would Sheyi accompany him to the presentation of the budget? What's the reaction of those in Abuja?
Yes, Moses, I get off the norm if the son of the president accompanies his father to such a significant appearance. I feel he no way has he broken any law or any protocol. I think it's standard. You have children of presidents and world leaders who accompany their fathers to important meetings. Yeah, but the thing about
sorry to interrupt you there, but this is coming after the president at some point came out to say that, look, Sheyi Tinubu should not be seen at FEC meetings because he's not a cabinet member. So he shouldn't be seen at FEC meetings. But we didn't see that stop. And now he's accompanying his father. Don't you think there's more to this?
Well, looking at the bigger picture of all this, I think Sheyi Tinubu he's somebody who is just trying to position himself for, I think, something bigger. Who knows? There are insinuations out there that he's eyeing the seat of governor of Lagos. I mean, it's all speculative. Nobody knows for sure. But such appearances, I feel he's just being. I think he's being strategic because if you know, right from his father's inauguration, when President Bola Ahmed Tinubu was sworn in as president, Sheyi Tinubu was right there at the podium with the father throughout all the whole activities he was. So and ever since then, he's always been at the forefront of Tinubu's president. Also, if you remember former President Buhari, at some point, he also used to be everywhere with the father, until he had the scandal, and then I think he had the bike accident in Abuja. From there, his father had to relegate him to the backseat of whatever the government's house and government activities. So we've seen the same thing play out with Sheyi Tinubu here. And everywhere with the father, even though the father has come out to say he should be seen. Yeah, he should have been seen in NEC meeting. What is he doing in NEC meeting? He's not a member of the federal executive. He's not a minister. He's nothing. But then for appearances like this, which is in the National Assembly, which his father is going to make a speech, I think he was not really off normal if he went with his father there.
Right after the presentation, did Nigerians in Abuja react to the lawmaker who attempted to sing "On Your Mandate We Stand" right before the president's presentation? Because I know he was shut down. There was, a rowdy session, and then the president of the Senate had to hit the gavel for peace to be restored. Did Nigerians react after to that lawmaker who attempted to sing "On Your Mandate We Stand"?
Yes, Nigerians did react, but I also, so the lawmakers actually sang the anthem. They sang from the beginning to the end. I mean, they were able to. They sang that, if I'm not being mistaken, because from the time they sang the on the mandate anthem. But for Nigerians, I think Nigerians are beginning to get used to the fact that the kind of democracy we're practicing now is more like a kind of whereby the king is the supreme leader, and that is what we just say in this case, because it seems like President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has taken over every arm of government. He is like untouchable at the moment. He's somebody everybody wants to knock toe to, and so it didn't come as a surprise for the lawmakers to sing on the mandate which is land. It's all psychophancy as far as I'm concerned, because tomorrow if the man is out of power, they're not going to sing on a mandate which is land. They're going to be singing a different tune for whoever is in power. So it's all part of the whole gimmicks of politics and what have you.
But now let me move over to Mr. Isaac. Yesterday, the president said that this budget is that of restoration. Last year's one, renewed hope agenda, this one, restoration. And he says that he sought to consolidate the key policies this particular administration, have brought up for Nigeria, especially when it gets to our economy and how to move the country forward. I would like to ask you, what do you make of this? Government policies and all that. What do you have to say about that? Budget of restoration.
Mr. Isiaka.
Can you repeat what? Can you just go through it again?
No, I'm talking to Mr. Isaac Bademosi at this point.
Hello?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, I'm hearing you now, but I didn't get your question earlier.
Right, the question is about the one for this year's budget is budget of restoration. Last year's one was budget of renewed hope. Now I'm asking, are we seeing any, any form of consolidation from the policies of this government to this point that will make this year's budget, 2025 budget, to be tagged the budget of restoration?
Yes, maybe before I go straight to that, I want to address one or two things that we mentioned earlier. It will not be appropriate for me to put the issue, and maybe I listened to some of the things that were said, and I didn't maybe put some things straight. You see, the budget cycle in the government or in any government, and when you say maybe we have money being vied from one vote to another vote, or maybe at the end of the year, money being filtered away
or maybe being used for what is not supposed to be used for. Most of the time, it doesn't occur that way. I've been in the civil service for decades, for close to 3 decades, and you know that when it's the end of the year, most of the time, like Mr. Fanimo mentioned, towards the end of the year, you have a lot of these activities. As at this time now, most of the offices, the financial offices, will be very busy trying to tidy up a lot of things with their finances, especially where they feel that they cannot meet up in terms of what they want to do. Where they have excess money, such money are usually returned back to the vote. That is what the law provides for, and nobody contravenes that law. You cannot, because by so doing, it will be against the spirit and letter of the law, and that could earn you a sack, or maybe you lose your job at the end of the day. But you see, some of those things that are done then, take for example, maybe people embark on journeys, on maybe you talk about seminars and all of that. All of those things were initially in the budget. They were not concocted or maybe manufactured from anywhere. Most of the time, these are things that are already in the budget. The way our budget is structured is not such that you can just go and bring out money and then you give it to somebody and say this is your share of what is left. No, it really does not work. You have to tie the money down to something, because you have to retire every kobo you spend or you have claimed to have spent. So this is how it works, and I think that is the spirit. That is the logic behind extending the budget beyond this period, because the spending is not achieved. So rather than you have a civil servant rushing and pushing hard to make sure that they put this money wherever they want to, as much as where they want to spend them, so that we will have the time to be able to do the proper thing. And that, I think that for me is a good thing, because when you extend the time, you give much more leverage and you don't allow room for a lot of misappropriation or malpractices.
But we have not seen the APC government adhere to the Fiscal Responsibility Act, where they're supposed to tell us what the money we budgeted for previous year will be used before bringing up a new budget.
Well, for me, I think that is a matter of the government's approach to being transparent, because ordinarily we should see the National Assembly should be demanding that to what extent have you executed this project, and to what extent have you spent this money. So by so doing, the government will now come and make explanation. You see, the arms of government have duties. They are supposed to hold the government. They are supposed to hold the executive to account for what they have spent. If they do not do that, the executive might not be generous enough to say this is what we have spent and this is what we have not spent.
So do you think that this 2025 budget now should be that of restoration, like I asked earlier?
Just a minute, please. I want to speak to the issue of project monitoring and evaluation. You see, for me, that is a fundamental problem in our system. We do not have a good mechanism for project monitoring and evaluation, and that in itself creates the room for us not to have transparency and able to do a proper evaluation of what has been done so far and what is left. So I think if maybe we are able to push these frontiers, we will get a much more better and transparent budget.
All right, Mr. Siaka, thanks very much. But let me stay with you. We have not seen the budget breakdown, but we have seen the highlights, Like we are talking about 3.5 trillion naira, budgeted for historic allocation to the education sector and all of that. Can you paint a picture, to us about how next year will look for the average Nigerian in terms of standard of living? I mean, we are talking about inflation, we are talking about food inflation, farmers not going back to farm and all of that. Is it possible that you paint a picture, of how the standard of living of the average Nigerian will look like in 2025? I mean, is it that things are going to get better, or are we going to remain where we are, or is it going to be worse than it is today?
If maybe I'll go by what we have seen in the budget in terms of the president projecting that the inflation would drop to about 15%. That excites me. That excites me a lot, because if the inflation on food and other commodities drops, that would be great for the economy. But also, I'm being very realistic and pragmatic about it. You see, because what we have today, for inflation to drop, we must see the cost of energy drop drastically. We cannot have inflation drop when we are selling petroleum products at maybe especially petrol at over 1,000 naira per liter, there is no way inflation will come down, except when the cost of energy comes down. We will now start, that will translate to a lot of things. But other than that, for me, I think the budget as it is, maybe the president is exciting us by saying the budget of restoration and all of that. I wait to see how it's going to work out. But bringing down inflation for me is key and most important. And I look forward to seeing that. We already observed that the price of petroleum is dropping, even though marginally for me, we have maybe 10 naira, 20 naira drop. I want to see significant drop maybe to maybe 600 naira per liter or maybe 700 naira per liter. That will translate heavily on the economy and the inflation in the country. And I think that is the route we should be expecting or what we'll be looking out to see.
All right, then. Well, unfortunately, I think I'll stay with you a little longer on this one as I ask this final question to you, and then we'll probably go around the studio. You could also wrap this with your concluding thoughts. Now, we see that defense, security and defense taking a huge chunk of the budget. Is that wise? Should that be the case? We know that insecurity has persisted in the country for as long as it has. But should we continue budgeting chunks for defense and security when other sectors suffer?
Now, Moses, we really do not have a choice in this matter because look at what is happening in the Northwest with the bandits and then translating to the Lakurawas, and then we are still grappling with the issue of Boko Haram in the Northeast, and then the Southeast is also having the issues of IPOB, EDSN, and all of that, and the unknown government. And I mean, there is so much that has to do with insecurity, and there is no way that we could run away from it. But having said that, I think that the government also need to look at a way of redirecting more funds to areas of development. And why is that? Because when you put so much money in defense, there are people who are benefiting from this situation, and we need to identify these people and try to puncture the trade. Just like it was mentioned earlier about the issue of kidnapping and money paid on ransom, totaling over 2 trillion naira. 2 trillion naira is more than the entire budget of the northwestern state, northwestern state. All of them put together, 7 of those states. It's more than the annual budget for last year. So you can imagine such huge amount of money going into bandits and in circulation. That for me is most unfortunate. And you see, we need to get the Army, the Navy, and the Air Force and the security forces to up their game and give us good results so that we can redirect funds in other areas, because we can't just endlessly continue to spend on defense and we don't develop other areas, because other areas will continue to suffer, and that is not good for our economy.
All right, then. Should we consider this your concluding thoughts? Isiaka, please.
Yes, that would be my concluding thought, yes.
Great. Thank you very much. Let's bring it back to the studio. Doctor, I'm going to ask you the same thing. Budgeting so much, seeing that a few people benefit from this, why don't we put some more into education, put some more into things that will enable people be a lot more creative? Wouldn't that shift their mind from wanting to join some of these groups that have infiltrated some parts of the country? Let's add that with your concluding thoughts.
Yeah, in real sense, we don't have choice at this point in time, because we see a lot of things. We see Isiaka Bello is there. We see everyone here is there. You see, Toji Bello.
Not Isiaka Bello. Toji Bello.
So sorry for that. So you see, a lot of things is there. So this is also boils down to us. Are we always reactive or proactive? There's a way we can be proactive, and we can handle this situation by reducing even the manpower involved. Look at them, so much, I think $800 million loan we borrowed to plant CCTV in Abuja. As we speak, no CCTV, no equivalent CCTV in Abuja that is up to that amount. So these are surveillance that could help. These are surveillance that could help to capture these people and nip it to the board, right? These are things that could help, right? We don't have surveillance. We don't have anything that could help us to track them. We are only depending on human. And so whatsoever they give to us, that's what we take. So we have no choice than to vote so much. So until we proactively navigate through that terrain, so we'll be able, okay, there was one of my clients, they have a senior marketing officer always telling them that, oh, I am the one that sponsor. Without me, you guys will not have anything to spend. Even talking to the managing director like that. So they fear those guys. So we help them to plant in some work on their Sage product and for tracking of system job implementation. And in the long run, they now discover that even most of his job is not well paid, and also if they are owing them, it's not even the fund that is helping the organization. So they actually need to see what you are talking. So the guy kept quiet. You know, if you don't have something scientifically to track this thing, they will still be at their mercy, because they say, oh, until you vote so much amount to track this thing, we'll still be victim of this. Because these guys are still complaining that they don't have enough weapon, a very good weapon to fight this. So it shows that the money is concentrated in the hands of few of them that are enjoying it. So until we proactively navigate through this terrain and have a plan B to it, to be able to navigate it, that is what will help us. But I believe so much, for you to be able to liberate an economy or a country, you must vote more in the education sector. And this is what helped us in the early 80s and the late 70s. We must be able and vote more to the agricultural sector. Not that the money is going into the hands of businessmen, not agricultural people. That is why we have $2.2 billion that does not have any impact. When we do the impact analysis, it has no impact in our economy. That's why our food inflation is at around 40%. So we must be able to navigate that terrain and put the round peg in the round hole so that we can get a good value for our money.
Thank you very much. Fantastic there. Dele Fanimo, your concluding thoughts.
What I said earlier, I don't want to hazard guesses on certain parameters, but the point is, education should take a priority, to make the priority list in budgeting. Because at the end of the day, today, India exports brain, not raw materials. And if you go to Silicon Valley, if you find 10 nationals, be sure that you have about 4 that are Indians. And that's a huge investment that had paid off over the years. So we should concentrate on education, because what we have now cannot take us to the next level in the education sector. There are some courses that are not going to work for anybody in this generation that we are still having in the university. So there must be a total overhaul of our education system. And if you don't have money to drive this process, we will not get there.
All right, then. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Now let's get into another conversation. This speaks about, we'll be focusing on NNPCL now. NNPCL's $1 billion investment in Dangote Refinery has sparked a dispute between Dangote Refinery and NNPCL. NNPCL issuing a statement, Dangote Refinery saying, look, that is misinformation. Well, let's talk about this one when we come back.
The gift of love.
The gift of joy.
The gift of laughter.
The gift of happiness.
The gift of peace. May all these and more be yours this Utah season.
Merry Christmas!
Season's
Greetings
greetings from the management and staff of Voice of the People Television.
Thank you so much for staying with us. It's still VOP this morning on Voice of the People Television. Dangote Group and the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, NNPCL, are at odds over a $1 billion crude oil-backed loan. NNPCL had earlier claimed it secured the loan to support Dangote Refinery during liquidity challenges. But Dangote Group has strongly refuted this, calling the statement misinformation. According to Dangote spokesperson Anthony Chejina, the $1 billion loan represents only a small fraction of the total investment in the refinery, which has a capacity of 650,000 barrels per day. In Chejina's word, it says just 5%. Dangote clarified that NNPCL had proposed a 20% stake in the refinery value at $2.76 billion, but the deal fell short, with NNPCL only investing $1 billion, which now accounts for 7.24% equity. The partnership was formed based on NNPCL's strategic position in the industry as the largest offtaker of Nigerian crude and the sole supplier of gasoline to the country. Dangote emphasized that if liquidity issues were a concern, the payment term would not have been credit-based. The disagreement stems from NNPCL's inability to meet the agreed crude oil supply volume, which led to the revision of their equity share. Dangote stated that NNPCL failed to meet a cash payment deadline for the balance of their equity, which expired in June 2024. Consequently, the equity stake was reduced, and it is incorrect to suggest that NNPCL provides the $1 billion investment and liquidity struggles. We still have with us in the studio, we have Mr. Dele Fanimo, who is a seasoned reporter and a social and political critic. And beside him is Dr. Gani Oluwashola, who is a managing partner, KJ Professional. And joining us virtually, we have Mr. Iseka Bademose, public affairs analyst and SDG advocate. And we'll be taking reactions from our correspondents, Chuka Adewale Chukudile from our Abuja station. Now, let me start with you, Mr. Fanimo. You made a statement, you said something earlier about how prepared Dangote Refinery is for them and their produce to be used by Nigeria. Now we're having this back and forth. It's not the first time. September 2024, there was an issue about pricing. And before you know what is happening, some people started talking about how offices were being demanded and all that, And later in November, the Dangote Refinery come up to say, we are reducing the price of PMS from 970 to, from 990 to 970, 20 naira discount and all that. If, for example, Dangote Refinery is having a liquidity challenge, is it 5%? From NNPC, that's $1 billion. I want to help them in building or bringing up the 650,000 capacity refinery.
You see, over 2 months ago, I've said it here that these entities, they have not really come clear to us as to what is assailing the refinery and ensuring that we have petrol in the pump stations. And it's still back and forth up till now. Now, during the Buhari administration, there was a deal between Dangote Refinery and the NNPCL. It was to be about 26% stake. But at the point, it was reduced to 20% stake. At that point, Nigerians felt that if you have 4 existing refineries and you can't go ahead and make sure that things work out in these refineries, why are you investing in private equity? And money was released, and it is coming to fall now that 1 billion naira, our dollar, was involved. And whichever way it is, either exchanging crude to show off this equity, to make it. And I remember that at the inception of this administration, efforts were made by Dangote to get the balance of the equity. But I think federal government reneged. If you remember that the Minister of State for Petroleum and the CBN said, on behalf of the federal government that they are not going to move any inch beyond what they have invested in Dangote refinery. And that was when this back and forth started. And I said here, I remember I said here that we may not get to the root of this matter soon. And that is what is playing out now. One, somewhere there is a break, and there couldn't be any detour. And that's why we have this problem. Government is not ready to release the balance of the equity, and Dangote needs it.
Not ready or don't have it? Because you're making it seem like government has it, but it's not willing to...
Well, maybe I didn't use the right word. Maybe the government does not have...
Because what Dangote is saying is, look, you opted for 20% stake, but then you're unable to meet up that amount, so we are reducing your stake to 7.28% because of your inability.
But
so shouldn't
that
we
had been done previously.
Shouldn't we be concerned
that had been done? And I think it was even October last year.
Let's not forget that part of the monies that NNPCL is supposed to put into this refinery was for it's a crude backed loan. So a lot of it is to come from the supply of crude. But NNPCL, according to what's coming up from the spokesman of Dangote Refinery, is that NNPCL is unable to supply that number of crude,
which is 3,000 barrels,
because of its involvement.
3,000 barrels?
Yeah.
No,
300,000.
Because daily, yes. Because of its involvement with, crude back loans it has reached with other companies, other countries abroad. So it's its inability to supply it now that has brought down its own share in the refinery.
The question is
7.8%.
The question now is, if you feel you want to invest in a company, maybe through IPO or anything, and you want to invest like 15%, and now you are not able to invest up to 15%, how is it a problem for this back and forth? I want to be part of you. Even if I decide to renege all through that I'm no longer interested in equity, why should that be a problem to the supply chain?
All right, then let me stay with you. I like the word you used, government has not fulfilled its own, and how Moses came into it, and also, is it a matter of not wanting to, is it a matter of not having? Now, let me be straight. There's been this allegation that the current president is not forthcoming because Dangote didn't support him, that he supported Ahmed Lawan. Is there a possibility that this thing is taking a political angle? I mean, the whole back and forth, NNPCL, Dangote, is there a possibility that it's taking a political angle?
You see, I don't want to go through that route because one does not have enough evidence to prove what you have just alleged. Okay. And it is for the Dangote group to come out to tell us.
Do you think they will ever?
Why would they
if
not?
That is the case, do you think they will ever?
So what stops them from saying it?
Should they say it?
They should.
That's if it is true.
If it is true, they should.
All right.
Because what that translates to is that process is being hampered and Nigeria is suffering if the process does not go through smoothly.
Okay. Talking about Nigerian suffering now, Dr. Ganiyu, this agreement we're looking at now was signed since 2021. It also have the clause that says that NNPCL will be the sole off-taker of PMS from Dangote Refinery and all that. And Nigerians were happy that finally, okay, we're going to have an end to fuel scarcity and high price of fuel and all that. Now, where does this leave Nigeria if this back and forth continues? Now, the NNPC have come up to say we are no longer so off-taker, and without have the regulation of the sector and a whole lot of things are happening, we still don't have this fuel available in Nigeria at a lower cost. Where does this leave Nigerians?
That's why I say agreement is agreement. Remember, this is one of the things that cost us a very huge embarrassment at the global space between Ogun State and the Chinese guy, right? That a decision was made in their favor, and they almost seized the two presidential jets, and the president needs to bring out one of it from their confine, right? So if you have an agreement of we are going to give you $1 billion, right? And others will offset it with 300 liters of fuel and to be able to give you. So we should be able to stick to it. And so Dangote will also give room because I think it's good if NNPC is the off-taker. But you also know that it also has political undertone. There is also a good handshake between Dangote and the former president, right? He also came there to show at the opening of the Dangote refinery before he left office. And immediately this new tenure comes.
In fact, he commissioned it.
Yes. So this new tenure, you see there is a lot of a strong handshake back and forth and every other thing, almost that he almost lose. Dangote almost have a glitch on his that he came up and said that his fall is one of the worst fall and every other thing. So that makes the man to become a media personality, showing up and down to be able to save his over $20 billion investment, right? Because where will he go? He still has a lot of debt to pay. So Dangote and it's not also good between government and private institutions. Because what we also talk about, what could drive our economy is PPP, public-private partnership, right? And there should also be a government handshake there to be able to help in controlling. You know, as we speak, we have a price control mechanism that we are not using effectively. And so if the government is not involved in what Dangote is doing, Dangote is a businessman. He can decide to say that this is how much I'm going to sell it. If you're not selling, I have to sell to South Africa, I have to sell to Ghana, so I can do without you because I'm in a free trade zone. And you cannot alter it because it's an agreement, right? So I think we should find a middle point to be able to come so that it will, and you know that it's saying in my dialect, saying that if two elephants fight,
the grass suffers.
The grass suffers. So the government should shield shield their sword. And also Dangote should come to a midpoint. Is this what we want? Let's come. Because in real sense, NNPC should be able to have a kind of controlling shares there. 20% is still good, right? Since it has been reduced to less than 10%, they are more or less like people like me and you that is investing in Dangote, right? So 20% looks more good. And also, within that agreement, let us be the only off-taker so we can control it and say that marketer, this is how much we are going to pay. Even if the government wants to subsidize in that area, they can still come in because that's the only off-taker. But as we speak now, Dangote Refinery has said that we have reduced your 20% stake to 7.28 stake. So what you just have is 7.28. So you don't have anything. So we've reduced it because you are not able to meet up. Then we can. So because what he was even saying that because you are the stakeholder, 20%, if you are paying you dividend, rather than paying you dividend, we will use it as part of your investment. And this is the agreement they also made. Remember that there is this major road that Dangote did, this airport road and the Bagada road. This is one of the strong roads because it is a PPP, public-private partnership, saying that this is XYZ amount of tax you should pay us. Convert it to building the road. And look at the good road that is being done there. Right? I think the government should cut biasness aside. Let's come into, let's remove politics and let's look into what will help the economy, that will help our economy, and also it will benefit an average Nigerian.
All right, then. Let me come to Isiaka Gadamosi now. Thanks for staying with us. Well, the back and forth, Dangote Refinery and NNPCL, how does Nigeria benefit from all of this? Because now we see that Dangote is selling crude to some other parts of Africa. And in fact, we hear that some countries have asked him to come establish refinery within their shores. But right here in Nigeria, we're having back and forth. NNPCL being unable to pay an agreed sum, and that now resulting in bringing down its own shares in the company. Where do we go from here, really?
Thank you very much, Moses. I think for me, we're in exciting times. I'm happy. I'm happy all of this is happening. Happy in the sense that it's bringing out a lot of information to the public. Some of these things that were under the carpet and under all these deals under the table are being forced out, and it's good for our system. It's good for our economy. I think Dangote is coming clean gradually with some of these facts that they were hiding before now. And I must say that the government, there is no right-thinking government. There is no government that means well for its country and its people that will have an investment such as Dangote and would want it to fail. So I do not believe in any way that the government has a hand directly or indirectly in maybe Dangote failing or not meeting up or anything. But I think maybe there are some rogue agencies or maybe individuals who maybe for their own selfish interest are maybe working against some things. And it is incumbent on the government to ensure that things are put properly and put straight. In the first instance, there is no need for an NNPCL to be the sole off-taker of Dangote product. That is a recipe for corruption and mischief. When you have other marketers all over the place, why should you be the sole off-taker? So for me, I think it's a thing that is good for the system. Besides that, you have a situation whereby the NNPCL is not able to meet up with the contractual agreement of supplying 300,000 barrels per day. I mean, at the end of the day, if you are not able to do that, then you should not get the share of the company that were allotted to you in the first instance. Those are basic business settings. So I think there are good things coming out. At the end of the day, the government should look closely at who is doing what and who is not acting in the interest of Nigerians and the Nigerian government, and make sure that they are put right and everybody do what is right. And that will continue to come clean with us.
Sorry, Biz. Just a quick one.
Yes.
A listener just sent in a message that Isiaka Gbadamosi sounds like an APC supporter. How do you react to that?
Interested. Well, APC supporter, no. When I come on the platform to speak, I speak to issues as an analyst. Yes, I might sound more like wanting to. I'm not a person that goes around to bash and bash and bash and bash. No. That's not my approach. My approach is, let us address the issues. Let us tell the government what they have done that is not right. Let us also tell those that are acting in the wrong way, or commend those that are acting in the right way. I think that is just it.
Okay,
Analysts, we don't have to belong to any political party or such.
Are you a card-carrying member of any party?
Of any political party?
Yes, political party.
Right now, yes, of course I am.
Which one?
I'm out of the civil service, so I am a free agent as it is right now.
Which party? Which party's card do you have?
Moses, why would you want me to start talking about that?
Mr. Isiaka, Moses is trying to put you on a spot, but let me stay with you.
Yes.
Now, I like the fact that you talked about no government in its right senses will allow an investment like that of Dangote, the refinery in particular, to fail. Now, let me ask you this question. Do you think that the government not taking out its complete equity of 20% is because it didn't have the money or it didn't want to invest in completely into Dangote refinery? Where do you place it? Where do you locate it?
If you look at the trajectory of the Dangote refinery, you see that the government has been very supportive. If you look at the Buhari administration, they actually supported the refinery in terms of financing and exchange rate and all of that to make sure that the project come on stream. And the Tinubu administration also has offered a lot of support. So I do not see any gap in terms of maybe support from the government, or maybe the government not ready to give any assistance. Just like I said, I think
my question is, government was supposed to take 2.7 billion equity that translates to 20% of Dangote refinery. Now the government was able to, at a point, pay $1 billion, and had an outstanding of 1.7, which they couldn't meet up until this moment. And I'm asking, do you think the government didn't do that because they didn't have the money, or that at a point in time that the government changed hands, that the present government didn't want to pay off? It's part of
No,
equity participation.
for me, I don't think that was what happened. What happened was that the NMPC, which represent the government in this deal, do not have the 300,000 barrels of crude which they are supposed to use to offset or to serve as the balance of the 1 billion naira they have paid in cash. I think that was what happened. Maybe the NNPC had a lot more commitments in terms of maybe supplies to other countries or other agencies that they need to supply to, and they cannot afford to give Dangote what it requires.
But
I
then
do
it
not
was
think it's
converted to cash.
because if they could
But
have paid the $1 billion cash,
but then,
why wouldn't they
but
raise the
then,
other one in cash?
but then,
But yes.
Dangote Refinery gave NNPCL 1 year to convert the crude supply to cash and pay in cash. And NNPCL still couldn't pay in cash before its equities was brought down from 20% to 7.28.
For me, I think NNPCL is not able to meet up with the obligation. That is as simple as it is.
Okay.
And I think the deal is off the table. And
All right.
Dangote should move on.
Now, my question will be, where are we headed to? Like, we have other local refineries that are coming up. You know, we have the Boa refinery and all that. With this back and forth now with NNPCL and Dangote refinery, do you think more people will have interest, you know, in investing in local refinery in Nigeria? As you also add your concluding thought to that.
Of course, yes. The refineries and the oil business is very lucrative in Nigeria. More people will be interested in it. But I think that NNPCL should hands off getting involved. You should not get involved in the business of local refinery establishment, Dangote taking up shares and all of that. There is no need for that. If let those who are invested in these areas invest, and then let the regulatory framework be there, and the regulatory framework be monitored properly by the government agencies that is saddled with that responsibility. The very instance you are a beneficiary in a company that you are also supervising, then your supervision role becomes compromised. And I think that should not be the case.
All right, then. Thank you very much. That was very precise and concise there. Well, let's come back to the studio now. Doctor, let's have your concluding thoughts.
Yeah, we are hopeful that the budget will be a restoration budget indeed, because people have faced a lot of, they actually need to be restored and to enjoy the benefit of democracy and to enjoy being in Nigeria. We are hopeful we are watching and hopeful that it's going to play out well. And also we are also hopeful that the pegging that they are pegging naira to a dollar is still too high, 1,500 naira. It's still too high. We are thinking it could come to around 1,000 or.
Well, is that not a realistic pegging?
So that is what I said. Okay, now they are passing a bill in the National Assembly and saying that, oh, all transactions in Nigeria should be done in naira.
Yes.
Right. If those bills, and one of the things I'm giving them a thumb up for, the first time they're doing something in the interest of Nigeria. If those things could pass through, and Naira should get more stronger, because there is this country called Kuwait. Their currency is stronger than US dollars, and they're oil-producing country. And they ensure that wherever you are coming from the war to come and purchase their crude oil, you must purchase it in their local currency. Remember, Russia also did something like that. That makes their currency to spike high. So if we go all through that parameters and we are sincere with it, ensuring that even all multinational, you pay every of your citizen here in our local currency. Because if I go to US, you won't pay me in Nigerian currency. You'll pay me in US dollars, right? So for you bringing them here, you must pay them in my local currency, which will also help. It will reduce more pressure on dollar and weaken our local currency. So with that, with all these parameters, it could help our currency to become more stronger. And the stronger we are in terms of currency, the better we are in servicing our debt, and the better we have in our foreign reserve.
Thank you very much. Dele.
I think we should, by now, have enough of this back and forth in the retail business, particularly the downstream sector of our economy. Because the volatility of these also impacts negatively on the average Nigerian. For instance, if imported fuel is cheaper than the one we produce locally, it speaks volume. If people have to go pay through their nose, import, pay for logistics and all that, and even tariff, and yet the landing cost is cheaper than the one we brew, we refine in our backyard here, then there's some kind of game that we don't understand as Nigerians. And the earlier they tell us.
Dr. Gani Oluwashola, managing partner, KJV, coffee, yes? Coffee,
not dollar.
yes, I'll take coffee. Managing partner, KJB Professional Services, thank you very much for your time on the program.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for keeping me.
And big thanks also to Isiaka Gbadamosi, who is a public affairs analyst and an SDG advocate. He joined us virtually. Thank you for your time as well.
Thank you, Moses, for having me. Thank you to everybody in the studio. Good morning.
This is where we draw anchor of the program. Join us again at 9 o'clock for newspaper review. I am Moses Humphrey. Bye for now.
And I'm Fina Okechukwu. Enjoy the rest of your day.
I am Chukuma Okoro. Thanks for coming on this show.
Bye-bye.